Hi, I'm Richard Garriott, known hopefully to some gamers as Lord British, as the creator of the Ultima series and also one of the characters within the Ultima series. But today I'm showing a game, Shroud of the Avatar, which is the first fantasy role-playing game I've made in almost 15 years that I hope is the spiritual successor to my previous work. Kind of long overdue to come back and produce another medieval fantasy role-playing game.
What has Kickstarter opened up for your studio?
Well, one of the great things about Kickstarter and crowdfunding in general is that when you work, if you don't do crowdsourcing and instead you have to raise money from investors or from generally speaking a big publisher, you therefore are encouraged, shall we say, to develop the game in the style of or under the direction of that larger company. And while that often is no problem, I have no problem with what are called traditionally developed games. But if you look back at the Ultima series, my favorites, Ultimas 4 and 7 and Ultima Online, differ from the ones I had the most trouble with when they launched, in particular Ultima 8, which was created just after my first company, Origin, became part of a bigger concern of Electronic Arts. And Electronic Arts, while trying to offer great advice, tried to manage Ultima Online Ultima 8 in the same way a sports franchise might be managed, which is to meet certain release dates and instead cut the features out in order to make those dates, because that's the way they've achieved their success in the past. But it turns out that's not the best way to create an Ultima. And so by going to crowdsourcing, it means that we are in a direct relationship with the customer. We're already being funded by the customers who will be playing the game at the end. And so it's now between us and our customers as to what game we create. And that way I think both we'll be happier, we'll create the game closer to what we want, and the customer will be happier because we're really creating it for them and we're getting the feedback directly from them as opposed to a corporate overlord.
How do you see crowdfunding impacting the game industry moving forward?
Well, I think that large publishers will always exist. I mean, even though each time there's a major upheaval, like going from solo player to massively multiplayer to social media to mobile, it allows new major companies to come into existence. EA for solo, I would argue Blizzard and NCSoft for MMOs, companies like Rovio for mobile, Zynga for social media. Those were all opportunities that came up with each of these upheavals. But none of those upheavals really support independent development for very long. It allows a new company to come into existence during the turnover, but then quickly the channel gets bought up again. And crowdfunding is a way to remain independent longer. And so I think it allows studios like my own to really serve the customers more than the investors.
With so many projects now out there on Kickstarter, what's the key to success?
Yeah, it's interesting. There's projects of all scales and sizes and types on places like Kickstarter. So the really interesting test for Kickstarter is doing something as big and complicated and expensive as a game. Even an inexpensive game is hundreds of thousands of dollars, and really to do a top quality game, you're talking millions of dollars. And that's not a small amount of money to try to raise through crowdfunding. And if you look at that as a nut to crack, there's about 4 projects a year that actually make it over $1 million, and that's very heartening if you're in my position. And that's one of the reasons why we've finally come to this conclusion that we can do this too, is when we saw that, for example, my favorite example is Chris Roberts, who wrote the Wing Commander series at the same time I was writing the Ultima series. We worked together at Origin. And he just closed $8 million of crowdfunding for his new game that is the spiritual successor to his previous work. And so while I would not want to believe that we might be able to hit that same target, the point is I now do believe that there is enough demand out there for these historical style games that for some reason so few people are chasing now, that I think that we too can both harken back to the past and yet remain innovative and create a new game experience going forward and provide people something they really want, and it's something I hope that they'll back.
What are your goals heading into your new project?
Well, I'm trying to, with this new project, I am trying to both ride the line between harken back to my work of the past. In other words, create deep, rich, detailed role-playing games that have this sandbox kind of reality where if it looks like it should be interactive, you can interact with it. That is a game about you, where your personality is analyzed through the gameplay, and your success or failure is not based upon the checking off the checklist of things on the quest log, but rather making judgments about what it is you should do. So harkening back to my previous work in those, I think, important, high quality, still valuable ways, and yet also then try to produce a modern game, meaning with great state-of-the-art engines, great state-of-the-art user interface and presentation technology, and do something really innovative with our interpretation of multiplayer, to where it is neither a solo player game nor a massively multiplayer game, but this ad hoc, real-time multiplayer aspect that puts you and your friends and other players that we think you might want to play with in the same game space with you, but at the game's decision.
How have you seen RPGs evolve?
I think role-playing games have evolved in kind of fits and starts. And in particular, I'm actually relatively critical of games since, say, World of Warcraft. I think that World of Warcraft remains, likely the best or one of the best MMOs available today, even after, a decade. And it's not to say there aren't maybe people doing at least as good of graphics or maybe better, as least as good of questing systems or maybe better, but they've all become kind of the same. They all have become games where you're the hero, go first make a permanent choice of what class you're going to be before you've ever played the game, make some permanent choices about how is your character going to look before you've ever played the game, then get thrown into a town, and yes, there's the shops that you need to stock up some stuff on, and there's the quest giver to go get your level 1 monsters, and you mine those to get to level 2, then 3, then 4, and here you are on the same old level grind we've always been on. And, that level grinding role-playing game has now, in my mind, run its course. It's time again to provide more interest. And while there have been people who have done some good work, I'm not saying everyone's been in that vein. There are some truly great role-playing games out there, but in aggregate, I think that there's way too much of sameness, and I hope we break that mold.